Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group. I am your host, Matt Allred. In this podcast, we talk to the people whose lives and careers are dedicated to the vertical transportation industry to inform and share lessons learned, building upon the foundation of those who have gone before to inspire the next generation of elevator careers. Today, our guest is Troy Tilleraas. Troy is the Vice President of Field Operations with Schumacher Elevator. Troy has been in the elevator industry for over 30 years, and about 21 of those years were in the field. Troy loves what he does and is passionate about the industry. Whether it be parts, tooling, or information, Troy's mission is to get the field personnel what they need so they, the company, and the customers succeed. Troy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to talk a little bit more about your career and Schumacher Elevator, and you're definitely in a kind of a unique spot out there in the Midwest, and so it's gonna be a lot of fun. And the question I want to start with is, how did you get started in the elevator industry?
Well, my brother-in-law's brother, who worked for Montgomery at the time, was home 4th of July, and he was working out in Los Angeles. He came home and asked if I needed a good job, and at that time I was divorced and needed to find a different career path, so I said yes. And he said, well, if you can be in LA on Monday, we'll get you working on Tuesday. So I took some guns and some other stuff that I had to put together enough money for a one-way ticket to LA, hawked that stuff on Saturday, flew out to Los Angeles, stayed with him for a couple of weeks, went to the Union Hall on a Monday, and was working on a Tuesday in Chinatown.
Wow. So your first assignment sounds like construction related. Is that right? As a helper?
Yep, it was on a construction job, downtown LA, hydraulic elevators, but it was still in the big city, if you will, from an Iowa farm boy that hadn't been to that big city or to any major city other than maybe Des Moines or Minneapolis. So it was quite a change.
Sure. So how long were you in that role as a helper and doing construction, and what did that look like?
I was a helper for the first 6 months, and as soon as I got to become a helper, the day that I turned 70%er, I went directly to a temporary mechanic. I was working in Santa Barbara at a big mall up there at the time, and putting in hydraulic elevators. We had escalators and some big freights up there. So I spent 3 years out in LA with Montgomery, put in a transfer from there to get back to the Midwest, and moved back to Milwaukee with Montgomery at the time, did some escalators at the convention center. And when that job got completed, I got a job with Schindler Elevator in Minneapolis, St. Paul.
Right on. So how long were you with Schindler then from there on?
I was with Schindler for 20 years total. I spent 7 years in the field doing repair and modernization, did a little stint in service. And then I took my boss's job at the time in repair and modernization. I became the modernization superintendent. I was that for 13 years at Schindler in Minneapolis. And then after that, I met Jeff Schumacher at a modernization walkthrough, and flat out told him that you're either going to hire me or I'm going to start my own company, and gave him about a 48-hour ultimatum, and the rest is history. If you say, he made me a job offer, and so then I was the branch manager of a freshly started office up in Minneapolis for Schumacher at the time. We had one service guy and one modernization crew, and I was up there for 7 years, and we grew that to about, I think we had 13 crews when I left there, and 4 or 5 service routes.
Tell me just a little bit about your motivation. After the time with Montgomery and 20 years at Schindler, you came to a point where, like you said to Jeff, you're either going to hire me or I'm going to start my own. What was kind of behind that? I mean, it sounds like there's obviously a lot of thought, a lot of passion to do something different.
Well, the passion of meeting people, doing modernization. You got to meet a lot of the customers directly, building managers. We did a lot of hospital work, and I got to meet all the building engineers. Basically, I like to find a fix to their problems of their elevators, to get them upgraded or find a solution to why they're having so many breakdowns, what have you. So I just kind of a people person, just wanted to facilitate and make their lives better through their world of elevators.
And it sounds like you didn't necessarily think you could do that where you were, and so you needed a new venue in which to make that happen. Is that right?
Correct. I mean, working for one of the majors, you're left to doing your job and maybe nothing more. You got different compartments, if you will. You stayed in your lane, and one compartment does construction, one compartment does modernization, one compartment did service, but they necessarily didn't overlap, and you got your hands in everything.
Sure.
So working for an independent like Schumacher, one day I can be helping out the service department side of things, and next day I can be doing the construction side, whatever it may be.
Very cool. Yeah, it does sound like you got a chance to definitely wear a lot of hats and maybe be that point of contact for your customer that could really look at all sides of the issue and work through that.
Right. I get a lot of calls from different consultants, asking for, budget numbers or thoughts, ideas on how they could present a project that the customer wants to do, but they don't want to have the downtime, or maybe they've got a challenge on getting the equipment in, but they don't want to disrupt their building. So, they come right out and ask, and I'm all about helping them out.
Very cool. So I'm curious, who were some of your biggest mentors as you got into the elevator industry and needed help and needed to ask questions of others?
Probably my biggest one was probably my boss at Schindler. He's retired now, Gary Anderson. Gary worked for a company, Lagerquist Elevator, which was eventually bought out by Dover. He came and it was our boss at Schindler, gave me a lot of insight on not only doing my job, but preparing helpers to become great mechanics, communicating with service guys so that you weren't just a lone ranger and come in there and fix their one problem. You kind of ask them if there's anything else that you could do to help their project become better, since you're there anyway. He was probably the major one. There's some other guys out there. When I was out in LA, we had our construction superintendent is Tommy Bowden. He was a superintendent that I had when I was up in Santa Barbara that basically set me up as a TM. Very hands-off kind of guy, but was always there if you needed something. He answered his phone. That's a big thing, and even in today's world, is being able to have somebody pick up the other end. So
sure, that sounds like such a small thing, but to hear you talk about it, it's a huge thing. When you need help, right?
Right. So I mean, we have all this forms of communication, but how many times do you send an email, you pick up the phone, but nobody's there? Well, usually if the guy's calling, he's got a problem and he's got that issue now. He needs it answered, in the short term. So being available and picking up the phone.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I hear you talking about, just a second ago, you were talking about your boss at Schindler and how he would reach out to people and just ask questions. Something as simple as communicating, saying, how can we support you in that project? How can we make things better? Do you worry sometimes that maybe people are sent out on projects and just don't have the support or the communication that they need to do a good job and feel good about what they're doing?
Yeah, I think I can't speak for everybody, but I think there's a lot of people out there that are just given the box of equipment and say, there, you're an elevator man, you got an M on your card, go install it. In today's world with the smartphone, they can look up a lot of things, but if we take those excuses away and give them all the information, more information is better than not enough. I've been accused of putting a lot of paperwork in the job packets if I know that there's something that's a little bit off. That's not a common thing that they've done. Another thing is having these superintendents talk to their field guys and finding out what they want to do in 5 years, 10 years, what's their life goals, really getting to know them rather than just assuming they're a mechanic that they want to stay turning a wrench their whole career.
Talk me through that a little bit. What have you seen come about as you get, like you say, a superintendent talking to the mechanics and say, hey, what do you want? What does your long-term plan look like? What have you seen come of that?
Some of them have said, wow, I've never given it a whole lot of thought. And the next guy may have said, I want to do something different. The kids are out of the house now. I don't have to do X, Y, Z. I would like to, see what type of part of the career can take me in. And if I get out of the field, maybe I can work 10, 12 years, maybe a little bit longer than I was planning on working, just at 58 until if I turned a wrench that whole time, maybe I can save my back, my body from stacking rails, climbing scaffold. So yeah, a lot of them have given it some thought. We're fortunate enough at Schumacher, we instill that into our manpower. And we've got 2 guys that are in our office right now that are within the last 6 months, that one's a field engineer and the other one's a construction and mod superintendent, which both came from the field. So
that's interesting you say that, because I know with a lot of my clients, there's just a challenge to get people to leave the field, but it's so valuable to have them in the office, especially, leading others, or maybe it's running projects, or like you said, engineering. what is it do you feel like needs to happen to help people make that transition easier?
I think you have to be upfront and tell them that, you know, they are going to have to get paid accordingly. You can't expect somebody to uh, lead a six-figure career and come into the office and go backwards, but you have to be realistic and show them what the other benefits are. You know, everybody's got a 401k that, you know, now the company will match up to a certain percentage of their income. You've got company vehicle that you can use for personal, which is a huge item if you start putting, you know, paper and pencil to it, what
Sure.
that actually is worth. So when you start putting all these benefits to that, I think that companies would realize that some of their best resources are people that already work for them. And the nice part about it is their fellow coworkers can call on them, and they know in a superintendent's role that they know the part, they know how to put the part together, they know how to take it apart, they know uh, how long it should take, what they may be missing, rather than hiring somebody completely out of the field and then put into a supervisory role. You're not going to learn that in 3, 5, maybe even 10 years if
Wow.
you don't actually turn a wrench. So I think a lot of them are missing the boat.
Sure. Sure. So it sounds like giving them the opportunity and obviously giving them fair pay for what they know, because obviously they've learned a lot in the field and have a lot to bring into the office with them.
Correct. I mean, I was in the parts room here a couple of weeks ago and had one of the major four companies had called in to our parts office, and they said, they sent a picture along with an email and said that we need this Schumacher roller guide. And the parts man showed it to me, and I said, that's not a Schumacher roller guide. It's got shoe blue paint on it, so it might look like it's a Schumacher roller guide, and the controller on the job might have been a Schumacher, but that's a Westinghouse roller guide. It's got 4-inch face roller and a 6-inch face roller and a 4-inch side roller. It's the old style Westinghouse. And the serviceman even said, well, how do you know that? And I said, well, you work in this industry for 30 years and 20 years of it turning a wrench. You'll pick up those things. So, you know, that was a young service superintendent that worked for a major that all he had to do was, you know, if he would have had some more help on his end, why he would have been able to go to the right vendor, but we could still find the part for him, but it wasn't a Schumacher part, but we helped him out.
Yeah. Well, maybe he knew that he didn't know, but just by calling you guys, oh, well, they'll know. They can help me out.
Well, and that is a lot of it. I mean, we do answer the phone, we answer the question, and we don't know it all, but we've got a lot of knowledgeable people that have come from different companies, and we've put them together, and we've got a fantastic team.
That's awesome. Well, and to your point, it sounds like, there are definitely things that can only be learned firsthand. And so, having that experience of being in the field is invaluable when you can help others figure out what part or figure out what needs to happen with the latest modernization. And I've heard you talk a lot about modernization, especially as you were talking through different parts of your career. What would you say is one of the your favorite modernization projects you've worked on?
Oh, about 5 years ago, we did a project in St. Paul called the James J. Hill Library. It was an early 1900s little elevator, probably 1,500 pound capacity, and they wanted to upgrade it and make it ADA compliant, but yet it's in an existing library with all the limestone walls, etc., old wood that was original. So we tore out one wall and worked with the general contractor and put in a roped hydro that went 5 floors and had a glass cab in it and wood cab. So the occupants of the building could see the workings of the elevator, if you will, and it still fit into the building like it was originally there from the 1920s. So that's one of the custom units that we've done. So that was a fun job to work on.
That's a lot of fun. Tell me a little bit about Schumacher. Obviously, you've got your service, offices that you have around multiple states or whatever. But how did Schumacher get started, and what was it that kind of led them to actually start manufacturing?
Well, Schumacher's a family-owned business, and the first items that they did were some farm equipment, chicken coop delivery lift, if you will. And then they gravitated to a casket lifts for mortuaries and whatnot. And then they eventually just got into putting a lot of elevators into different buildings around Iowa. I've witnessed and looked at some of them, and it was before the days of ASME code, if you will. So a lot of them have been tore out. A lot of them have been retrofitted. I actually retrofitted a unit here about 4 years ago in a mortuary where I think it was number, I want to say 36, that the number of units that they had done. So it was quite an old unit. It had an overhead traction single cable wind up lift on it, and the building had changed it to a push button in the elevator. Well, it didn't meet code, so we went in and modernized it and made it legal, and so it has quite a challenge to keep the existing customers that we've had, that a lot of the units probably don't have code, but with the continuation of time, why the inspections department has caught up with them, and now we've gotten to upgrade them as well.
Right. What would you say is kind of the place where Schumacher excels? Obviously, you're building, I guess, custom units. Is that right? What
we build the units that a lot of companies don't want to spend the time of engineering with. You have a hoistway size, we'll put an elevator in it that fits. We custom fit a unit for your space rather than we tell you what you need.
Right.
We can do both ways, but our niche is you got a XYZ space, we'll put an elevator in it.
Very cool. Very cool. Some odd shape, odd size, and doesn't matter. We'll make it work.
Correct.
Very cool.
Yep.
Very cool.
Square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Kind of that.
So, Troy, what makes Schumacher as an independent different from other independents in the industry?
Probably the biggest key is our own on-site engineering staff. We have our own mechanical engineers and electrical right here in the big town of Denver, Iowa. So we don't have to send out those items to get looked at. We manufacture our own equipment to whatever the spec is asking, if there is a spec. We also have our own test tower for our hydraulics. So we test all of our equipment before it's sent out. Our electrical department has their own test stands that all of our controllers are hooked up to, and they're verified that everything does function. So we sell a lot of units to other independent companies out there that buy complete units from us, or maybe just a package. We have our own cab department where we provide the cab complete. So you don't have to go to a third party that just does elevator cabs, if you will. So if they want to purchase a complete elevator, start to finish, and all they have to do is supply the labor to install it, we do that as well.
You got it all right there in-house then, huh?
Correct.
That's great.
We have our own wholesale department that we've got one guy that handles primarily the East Coast. We've got another gentleman that handles the West Coast, and we have one in-house person here in Denver, Iowa, that handles wholesale calls that come in just to our office right here in Denver. So
when you're talking about wholesale, you're talking about, as I understand it, a non-proprietary elevator. So if somebody says, "Hey, I want to, whatever, put in this elevator," you'll sell them the whole package. They can install it, but you're providing all the pieces.
We're providing everything from the rail brackets to the rails to sling and platform. If they want to purchase their own controller, or they tell us that they've got a certain controller that they like to purchase from a different third party than us, they certainly can. We manufacture our own fixtures, or if they want to supply their own, or we incorporate what company they like to use, we can do that as well.
Very cool. So do you consider Schumacher an OEM, or how do you think of it?
We are a manufacturer, but we supply a non-proprietary controller using our own controller, but it's all third-party components to it. There's nothing that's proprietary.
Nothing secret about it, in other words. Nope. Anybody can work on it.
Right. It's PLC based. It has the landing system is used by other elevator companies, so it's very user friendly.
Very cool. Thank you. Well, what is it that you love most about the elevator industry?
Well, when I was turning a wrench, the part that I liked the most on that side of things was something different every day. One day you could be stacking rails. The next day you are putting together the sling. Another day you could be wiring. Next day you could be doing carpentry work. So in the field, it was something new. Every 2-3 days was something different. In the office, it's kind of the same way with the hat that I'm wearing. I work with the service department, with the construction department, with modernization, with all our people in the office, with the engineers. It's a variation of people, and then also our clientele, the customers, direct customers, universities, consultants, just to find a common problem or common solution to their problem. So whatever, that's the part that I like, is just problem solving.
Yeah, and it sounds like it never gets boring. Something new every day. Something new every day is right. That's cool. If I'm going to ask you maybe just a couple questions before we wrap up, as we're kind of running out of time here. But first question is, if you could wave a magic wand and change any one thing in the industry, what would it be? The elimination of the MRL traction elevator. I think we've gone, in my opinion, we've gone backwards. We're taking that unit and now we're making a confined space on top of the elevator, where if the
field tech is on top checking out the machine. He has or she has gone up there by themselves, and if they lose power to that building, it's a confined space. Even if they don't lose power, it's still now we're introducing a confined space on top of the elevator. If they can't get down for some reason, did they put a ladder on the escape hatch inside the cab? Did they remember to open the doors so that they can eliminate the restrictor if they do come down the escape hatch on the ladder and can push the car doors open and get out? All of these things in that type of setting that I don't think are really needed, just to prevent the owner from maybe 3 more feet on top of the roof to give a person a full overhead traction elevator.
So looking out for safety, sounds like you're identifying a place where maybe we could have a little more space and just be
I think we have to look at it on the big scheme of things, on how long that building is going to be around. We're all the general contractors are given a budget. I understand that, but they have to go back to their building owner and say, if this building is going to last you 80 years, putting a direct overhead standard traction elevator compared to an MRL, what are the cost savings going to be? How much are you really saving over a period of time?
Sure. Makes sense. Thank you. So last question I want to ask you is, what advice would you give to somebody who's maybe starting out fresh in their elevator career and doesn't have the perspective of 30 years? What would you say to them?
If it's a field tech, ask questions, and always stay busy. You can always push the broom, clean, do stuff on your own time. When I first came into the office, I didn't know how to do too much on a computer. I took computer classes on my own. Not everything is going to be IUEC trained. If you need to go and take another electrical class so that you become better at it, some of your own initiative to further your career is going to be beneficial in the long run. If you're a person in the office, a salesperson or whatever, ask questions. Ask if you can go along with your construction and modernization superintendent to get a hands-on and look at what you're actually selling. I try to take a young service person, salesman, saleswoman along when I do my mod walkthroughs or construction site visit, just so they can see. And a lot of them have told me that I learned more today than I have in the last 3 months. It's beneficial. You can see what you're talking about. A video only does so much until they get out there in the real life.
Very good. Thank you so much, Troy. I appreciate you being on with me today. Appreciate the conversation and wish you the very best.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group, a leader in elevator industry recruiting. You can check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.